We got to get with someone to help us navigate through these troubled waters. And that's why I am so thrilled to have Senator Kent Conrad. He's the Democrat from North Dakota. He's chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. Pretty important, okay? And he's here on the show tonight. He is one of the most smartest, one of the most sophisticated, smartest minds in Washington, especially when it comes to these financial issues. Hey, you know what? He can help us clarify what's really happening with this debt ceiling morass, the default risk, the debt downgrades, and at the same time talk about the massive energy transformation in this country since North Dakota, where he's from, is right in the middle of it. It's why I first booked him, for heaven's sake. He's in the home of the Bakken Shale, the largest oil find in American history. Senator Conrad, welcome back to Mad Money.
Hey, good to be with you, Jim.
I feel so bad, Senator, because, I was just so excited about the dynamic growth in your state, and we got to get to that, and you've been a pioneer at this. But, because of your powerful position as chairman, I've got to ask you, did we break the consensus today? And that consensus was that both sides always said, hey, listen, but don't worry, we won't default. It feels like that's what snapped.
No, I think it is still the case. Leadership on both sides understand it would be catastrophic to default, so I think we will avoid that. The big question, Jim, really is, are we going to deal with the debt threat itself? As you know, that is job one for the United States. We've got to get our debt under control. Just extending the debt limit is important, but at the end of the day, it's not sufficient. We've also got to take the steps necessary to change our spending, to change our revenue, so that we get back on a more sustainable course.
Well, Senator, do you think days like today in the stock market where people lost billions of dollars, do they help concentrate the minds in Congress to get exactly what you just talked about?
Jim, I certainly hope so. As you know, I was part of the Fiscal Commission, one place where we got a bipartisan agreement, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 1 independent. I've been part of the group of 6, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. We reached an agreement on a long-term plan to reduce the deficits about $4 trillion. I hope we can persuade our colleagues in these hours ahead. Now is the time.
It is hours, isn't it? We're really talking about hours now.
Yes.
All right. Now, Senator, I'm thinking about a two-stage, having dealt with a lot of bond guys today, a two-stage possible default. I know you want to rule it out and say you can rule it, but the first is I call default light, which is that certain bills are not paid, and that can happen. We won't want it. Leads to a downgrade of our debt, probably S&P. The second one is the nuclear option, where we don't pay the interest and principal of our bills. That's just not possible. Right? We're just never going to get to number 2, right?
No, and really we should never get to number 1 because, as you know, most of the markets are not going to look very favorably on a selective default. Right. You start not paying your bills, they know where that's headed.
Okay, but this is one where it just seems like in the last 48 hours, the rancor reminds me of I'll use an extreme example, but I haven't seen this level of partisanship since 1860 in this country.
It's very deep and it's very serious. And look, this town, there's a certain amount of kabuki that goes on here. And so part of this is a dance, part of it's theater. The problem is sometimes theater, people don't know when to differentiate reality from theater. And some of my colleagues don't. So let's hope that enough of them recognize the reality of our current condition and step up to the plate and do what has to be done, which means all of us have to give some ground here. All of us have to move off our fixed positions.
Now, Senator, there are people, you're both a student of history and economics. I'm familiar with all of your background because you've got a tremendous intellect. And I feel like that there are people who are in the Congress who you and I offline, if we were, out at a camping trip somewhere, would call anarchists. Anarchists who actually want the government to shut down. I mean, that used to be the definition of anarchy in Europe. Are these people going to prevail?
No, I don't think they are, because I think a substantial majority of my colleagues, certainly in the Senate, I also believe in the House, understand the consequences of a failure to compromise here. I really do believe that. But there are people, frankly, on the left and the right. Who are unable, unwilling to shift positions an iota, even in the face of a circumstance in which we're borrowing 40 cents of every dollar we spend, and our debt's now 100% of our GDP.
Can you convince some of the importance even of a rating agency? Perhaps they're not aware of the power of a rating agency to cause a run on the dollar or the Chinese to back away from financing our deficit?
Jim, I have shared rating agencies' materials and warnings to my colleagues very broadly. I hope very much they're listening and paying attention. I know, look, that many of them are. The group of 6 really became a group of 40, the 40 senators almost evenly divided, who've said, hey, we can do what you've proposed. We're ready to make compromise to really get this debt down. And I hope others of our colleagues are listening.
Okay, now, Senator, I cannot have you on and not give a ray of hope about something because it's not my style and it's not your style. You've got an employment boom. You are hiring like mad. Your state recognizes the bounty that can be had by drilling into the ground and extracting oil that we couldn't get. Could we not have a way out longer term here in that many thousands of people could get jobs? We could decrease the amount of oil we bring in, maybe also rely on natural gas. Is this not the best feel-good and actual good story in America today?
Absolutely is. You know, North Dakota now the 4th largest oil producer in the United States.
North Dakota. Isn't that
North
something?
Dakota.
You ever think we'd say that?
And we're very proud. Oh, look, our unemployment rate's down at 3.2%. The Bakken formation's incredible. We got another formation right beneath it called the Three Forks. Hasn't got as much attention, but we think perhaps as much potential. Billions of barrels of recoverable oil. And look, how much better off would the country be if instead of sending this money to the Middle East, it came to the Midwest, and we started reducing that $1 billion a day we're sending abroad? How much better off would our economy be, would our country be, if that money was staying right here at home? Now,
Senator, you're a fiscal conservative, so I have to ask, though, is there anything Washington can do to help this along? Build more pipelines, $60,000, $70,000 a year jobs building pipelines. Is there anything Washington can do to further the boom?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a couple of things. One, they can get out of our way. Number 2, it's true.
I know.
Number 2, we need them to help us with infrastructure because we've got critical needs in terms of highways, in terms of pipelines to move this product. It's staggering. It takes 2,000 truckloads a well. And we've got 2-lane roads that are leading these wells. Look, we have a national imperative to develop this resource.
Absolutely. Senator Conrad, I'll tell you, man, you made me feel better. Thank you so much. I hope you made the nation feel better. Senator Ken Conrad, the Senator of North Dakota, you are a delight to have on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jim.